Hello, and welcome back to another session of Principles of Christian Finance 102. In this session, you will learn the concept of cash flow margin. We'll talk about taxes, income, Social Security, Medicare. We'll talk about spending guidelines, emergency funds, insurance coverage, and estate planning. Now let's get started. Here are some interesting stewardship facts. Did you know that 76% of consumers live from paycheck to paycheck? That is, from payday to payday. The average family has to use a credit card to pay for any unexpected expense that exceeds $1,500, and they are 3 years away from any planned repayment program. Here's another fact. 37% of marital problems are financial based. We're told by counselors that is the number one reason why married couples end their marriage by divorce. Another fact is that 70% of Americans die without a will or trust. That's a staggering statistic to realize that most of the people in your congregation do not have a will or trust. Do you have one? Here's another fact. Nearly half, 46% of all Americans have less than $10,000 saved for their retirement. And then 53% of Christians have not given to their church in the last month. Church giving has not exceeded 3% as a portion of income in the last 40 years. Those of us who are Christians encourage our congregations to give 10% as a minimum to their church. And yet from this statistic we realize that church giving has not exceeded 3% in the last 40 years. Stewardship. It's a 100% concept. Now what is stewardship? Well, it could be defined as the management of resources that are not our own. In the book of Psalms, chapter number 24, verses 1 and 2, we find these words. The earth is the Lord's, and all that it contains, the world, and those who dwell in it. For he has founded it upon the seas, and established it upon the rivers. You see, the Lord owns it all, and we are his managers. The word stewardship really could be translated literally over a house. It comes from two Greek words, oikos, house, and nemo, manage. It means a manager over a house. This includes time, treasure, and talents. God owns all things. We are his stewards. It is important that we use our assets to their fullest potential during our lifetime for self, family, business, and for charitable interests. And at death, we must have arranged for the transfer of our assets in the most efficient and effective manner to individuals or charitable interests who will continue to use them to reflect our Christian lifestyle. God owns 100% of everything. God owns all things, and we simply are his stewards. Dr. Richard A. Swenson has said, "Never spend more than you earn. Always pay taxes and give charitable gifts first, then live on what's left." That's a wonderful piece of advice. You know, compound interest is either a powerful foe, that is debt, or a friend, an investment. It's a terrible foe when you're paying 22 to 24% interest on credit cards. That interest continues to grow, and when you only pay the minimum amount, you're in real trouble financially. Or it can be a friend. When you begin to invest and see how over the long term that investment grows, it is your friend. Compound interest can be your friend. Spend less than you make. Money does not bring happiness, but a lack of it can cause all kinds of problems. You should save for several things. One, an emergency fund. An emergency fund should be 3 to 6 months of your living expenses. You should save for short-term purchases. things that you want and need, but it takes a little while to save up the money to purchase it. Do that rather than put it on a credit card. And then long-term expenses like education and retirement, you need to save for those items as well. Short-term purchases could be anything within the next 5 years, could include a car or other items. Long-term savings would include college expenses for dependent children and retirement. 50% of those who reach retirement age reach it with only Social Security for their income. Some intentionally do not plan for retirement. I would encourage you to not be one of those kinds of people. Plan for retirement, so when you reach that age, you will be fully prepared. Taxes are a reality in the United States. Estimate your income tax withholding accurately, because a refund check is really a poor investment. You should use your funds all throughout the year, rather than to send an overestimate to the government for them to use for the whole year. For you see, it's just a poor investment of your funds. I try to always accurately estimate what my tax bill is going to be and pay just that. I'd actually rather pay a little bit at the end of the year rather than to get a refund, because that means I've had access to my funds. Now, what are some of the taxes? Well, there are income taxes, which are federal, state, county, and city, and there's no maximum on those. You'll continue to pay taxes regardless of how much you make. Social Security, however, has a tax on what you earn, but it is only up to a maximum of $127,200. This year, the federal tax rate is 7.65 for employees and 7.65 for employers. If, however, you are self-employed, and that's how the Internal Revenue Service looks at ministers, you will pay the entire amount of 15.30%. The rate consists of two parts, 12.4% for Social Security and then 2.9% for Medicare. On this slide, we'll talk about Social Security benefits. According to the Social Security Administration Annual Trustee Report, reported by the National Academy of Social Insurance, we find that by the year 2020, spending for benefits will exceed revenues plus interest on Social Security. The funds would then begin to be redeemed by the Treasury securities. The cash to redeem the bonds may come from several sources: increased taxes, reduction in other federal government spending, or borrowing through the public sale of Treasury securities. If the money is borrowed, it will increase the federal budget deficit. In 2034, it is estimated that the trust fund assets will be exhausted. All Treasury securities would be redeemed. Taxes coming in from workers and employees would be sufficient to pay only 79% of the benefits promised under current law. By 2089, the end of the 75-year projection period, incoming taxes would pay about 74% of scheduled benefits. You can see that Social Security is certainly in need of an overhaul. A wonderful resource for you to be familiar with is Dave Ramsey and his Financial Peace University. On this slide, you will see spending guidelines that he recommends. 10 to 15% of your total income should go to charitable giving. 5 to 10% savings and investing. 25 to 35% housing. Utilities 5 to 10%, food 5 to 10%, transportation 15% is the max, clothing 2 to 7%, medical health 5 to 10%, personal 5 to 10%, and recreation 5 to 10%. Just a few moments ago, we talked about establishing an emergency fund. Dave Ramsey suggests that an emergency fund is to be used to avoid debt. You ought to begin with at least $1,000 in the bank. If one's income is less than $20,000 a year, then just start with $500. But you want to move to the point that you have 3 to 6 months' expenses in your savings. This emergency fund can be used any time an unexpected expense is incurred. How can you eliminate debt? Well, first, pray for the Holy Spirit's help and guidance. We really can't do anything successfully apart from the Lord's guidance. And then, allow no more debt. And then destroy all your credit cards. If you can't pay your credit card in full every month, then destroy them. Pay cash. Sacrifice wants and desires until debt is current. List your assets to evaluate whether to sell for debt reduction. It may be that you need to sell a car and get rid of it because the payments are just too high for your income. Then contact all creditors and arrange a repayment plan. Most creditors will work with you, and they will help you to put together a repayment plan that will satisfy both your budget and their need to collect their bill. The average family can be debt-free in 3 years, according to Crown Financial Ministries. Wouldn't it be wonderful for you to be completely debt-free? Free from debt. What a great concept. Would you like to drive a free car for life? What if you decided to stop messing with car payments altogether? What if you invested that old car payment every month instead of giving it away to the bank? What if we showed you a 6-year plan that would put you in a free car for the rest of your life? What if that plan also made you a millionaire? Does that sound too good to be true? Well, I want you to watch Dave Ramsey's video on week number 4 of this class, and it will show you how to drive free cars for life. Insurance coverage is very important for every family to provide. Life insurance will cover you in the event of death. Disability insurance will help you if you are not able to work. There's long-term disability, which kicks in after about 6 months of being disabled, and then there's short-term disability, which is very inexpensive, that kicks in immediately and pays until about 6 months. Health insurance is extremely important for every family to have and to maintain. Auto and home insurance, and then identity theft protection. Identity theft protection can be purchased as a plan to help you in the event that someone steals your identity. Purchase a plan that provides full restoration benefits, which takes over all the work with the creditors, maybe government agencies, collectors, the police, Social Security, and other organizations. Make sure the plan covers all risks of identity theft, not just credit-related issues. And then I would encourage you to always order your free credit report for each credit bureau once a year. Take advantage of free consumer services to help reduce your risks of having your identity stolen. And enroll your entire family in a plan, since children are prime targets for identity theft. And then long-term care. This will kick in to help pay for unexpected expenses of nursing home care or rehabilitation care. Now, Dave Ramsey gives many more suggestions, as well as Crown Financial Ministries and their identity theft report. You can get additional information from those sources. Let's now turn our attention to estate planning. You'll need a proper will. A will is a legal document by which an individual or couple identifies their wishes regarding the distribution of their assets after death, as well as a guardianship of any minor child. Opportunity for your testimony as a preface to a will also gives you an occasion of continuing your legacy even after you die. Also, there's a power of attorney. This is a legal document that gives someone you choose the power to act in your place. And then a medical living will. It's a written document that allows the originator to designate someone to make medical decisions on his or her behalf in the event that he or she becomes incapacitated due to an accident or possibly an illness. There's also such a thing as a durable power of attorney. That's for health care, and it's a document that helps you name someone else to make decisions about your health care in case you're not able to make those decisions yourself. It gives that person, called your agent, instructions about the kinds of medical treatment you want. In case you ever become mentally incapacitated, you'll also need a durable power of attorney. A trust. A trust is a legal arrangement that creates a separate entity which can own property and is managed for the benefit of a beneficiary. A living trust is created while its guarantor is still alive. A testimonial trust is created upon the guarantor's death, usually by another trust or by a will. Using a trust involves a complex set of rules, tax rules, and regulations. And so, before moving forward with a trust, consider working with a professional who is familiar with the rules and regulations. And last, letter of intentions, or LOI. If you're looking for a way to simplify a complex inheritance structure for your heirs, then a letter of instruction is what you need. Unlike a will, this letter doesn't have any legal authority, but it can provide an easy-to-understand explanation of your overall estate plan to your executor. It serves as a cheat sheet, if you will, for anyone involved in settling your affairs and providing them with a ready point of reference. The great thing is that because these letters aren't legal documents, you can include your own personal wishes and messages to your family in a letter of instructions. Why are wills so important? Well, you will remember that I mentioned earlier that about 70% of people do not have a will. Let me mention some of the benefits of having a will. It gives you an opportunity to place your testimony as a preface to your instructions. Second thing it does is it makes sure your assets go where you want them to go. If you don't have a plan, the government does. Controlling assets while you are alive but incapacitated are another advantage. And then controlling assets after death. You may want to put a provision on how your assets are allocated. Perhaps after a person becomes 18 years of age, then they would receive their inheritance. And then providing provisions for a guardian or minor child. This is so absolutely important for younger couples, to have a provision for their children, to have an agreed upon arrangement with someone who would then become the custodian of your children, who would raise your children for you. Then minimizing heirs' emotional and financial burdens, minimizing taxes, and increasing the amount available for charitable donations. Don't forget charitable donations in your will. And then avoid the cost and delay of probate court. On this slide, we will talk about being considerate of your family. To be considerate of your family in your estate plan, you should inform them of the location of important papers and keys to lock boxes or containers. You should provide contact information for insurance companies so that they can know what policies are available, and this should also include Medicare. Financial statements listing your accounts and any outstanding loans you might have. That would be an important piece of information for your family to have. Or persons to contact, such as relatives, friends, and advisors, to notify them of your death and to receive their input or advice. And then an obituary listing your name as you wish that it would be written, including nicknames, place and date of birth, immediate relatives with noteworthy accomplishments. And then last, the type of funeral you prefer, and any prearrangements that you have already made with a funeral home and or minister. On the next slide, we will continue looking at considerations for your family. Considering your family in your estate plan is very, very important to them. You ought to provide the name and email addresses, telephone number, and street addresses for the following individuals: an attorney, the financial planner that perhaps you've used, an insurance agent, or maybe there are several agents, human resource person from the place you work, preferred physicians, and then your minister. These names, email addresses, telephone numbers, and street addresses will help your family greatly as they begin to unfold your estate plan.